Hello. I actually recorded two videos yesterday, but both of them, I just don't think I was in a good mood to be doing to be speaking publicly. I was really tired and maybe not in the best year, just in a general bad mood maybe. Anyway, I've put those on ice. No, I'm going to think I'll delete those because I don't think I've ever posted. But what I thought, I was going through and thinking, which CD should I talk about today? And what these are, the theme of this is these are all artists from the section of E on my CD shelves. And I've said this before, that the way I alphabetize is by the first, not the first word, but for example, this first one is Elton John. I don't do it with the J's, I do it with the E's, which is obviously different than if you went to a record shop. If you want to find Elton John, you'd go to the J section, John, Elton. But I don't do it that way. I don't know, mentally, I guess that's just the way that I do it. And so these are all from the E section. These are all greatest hits collections and all, I guess, classic rock or older, from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so that is the general theme. So let's go through them. These are all secondhand. Let me just double, yes, they're all secondhand. This first one here, like I said, Elton John greatest hits. What the hell was that? There was a big noise outside. This looks like an older greatest hits collection, doesn't it? Because this, you can just tell by the photo and the cover art that it looks kind of 80s-ish. And also by that track listing font and layout, also looks quite 80s-ish. First generation of CDs, but let's see if we can find a date. Can't see any dates there, but maybe I'm just missing it though. So if it was from the 80s, which I'd almost certainly say it is, then obviously, okay, those are just when they were recorded, obviously. I want to know when they actually pressed the CD. 84, there we go. Because I always say, you always go with the later date. DJM, don't know what DJM is. What record company is that? Doesn't even look like him there. He looks like someone. Not, I guess without the glasses, maybe that's it. But I've seen without glasses before. His own hair, is that what it is? A kind of mullet. Is that him? No. Is that... It is him. Why is he going to be there? That's not Bernie Taupin, is it? Obviously his band. Okay, well, he's not. So what have we got here? These are the albums that were available at the time. And these are the songs on here. We got Your Song. That's a classic. Daniel. It's a classic. I don't like that song, Daniel. I've never liked that. Honky Cat. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. That's a classic. Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. That's a classic. Rocket Man. Classic. Candle in the Wind. Classic, though I don't like it. Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. Classic. Borders. That's for greatest hits. But what do you expect? Elton John has just got a catalogue full of greatest hits. Even though I've never been the biggest Elton John fan, he's got some amazing songs. But I would never say, like, he toured in New Zealand quite often. I think he's retired from touring now, but he toured here most recently in. Well, actually, that's funny. Yeah, it's a funny story. He had a big tour booked for early 2020, like March, and that was cancelled because of COVID when that all kicked off. So that was all cancelled. And then he rebooked it for summer 2023. And the weekend of which he had two back-to-back concerts at a stadium over in the city in Auckland. It was late January. What the hell is that noise now? I'm hearing another kind of noise outside, like an alarm. Anyway, it was the worst rainstorms that Auckland had experienced in 100 years, and the city was flooded. pretty badly. Like in my lifetime of 40 years of living here off and on, it's certainly the worst flooding that I've ever seen by far. And the stadium and the surrounding roads where he was played flooded. And he was coming on stage at like 8 o'clock that night, and this was about 5:36. They had to cancel the concert the last second. There were people actually in the venue in the absolute torrential rain when it was cancelled. And then it actually got quite dangerous. A few people died that night, and I was actually stuck on the motorway. The motorways were flooded and you couldn't get past. Had to turn around on the motorway. It was like utter chaos. Kind of like nothing I'd ever experienced before in my life that night, that Friday night. Is just, the city was just underwater, and I was trying to get to work, and every road I turned down was flooded, and it was like the waters were rising. You're like, okay, I can't go that way. U-turn. Oh, I can't go that way. And I was kind of getting a smaller and smaller area. Like, what the hell am I going to do? So I ended up kind of just going up a hill, which is a good thing. Auckland has got a lot of hills, so I just kind of got up some hills, and then but it took me hours to get home. Absolute hours. Never actually got to work that night, which is a good thing because my work, the place where I would have parked my car, was completely submerged in water, and lots of people lost their cars, like were write-offs. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with Elton John, just that my point is that if he had toured here, I would never have wanted to go to his concert. If it was a free ticket, sure, but I wouldn't have paid money. Whereas someone like Billy Joel, for example, I would much more rather go to the concert. So like I'm saying, I'm not a huge fan of Elton John, but that's not to say he doesn't have a catalogue of a lot of great songs. Anyway, so an older greatest hits collection. This would have been 50 cents. I wouldn't have paid over 50 cents for this, because I have some other Elton John albums, and so I wouldn't have the need to spend more than that. The condition looks pretty good for such an old pressing. Jewel case still intact. It's a little bit of smudgy there. But anyway, okay. Number 2, on the E, The Eagles. And this one was 50 cents also. The complete greatest hits. Well, that's a bit presumptuous. The complete greatest hits. So what do we got here? We've got a double disc, double CD, greatest hits. And we also have no booklet. It's just a single sheet of paper. Got the cover art, which is kind of ugly, that the font they've used here. I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised. It's got the Warner Brothers thing on it. It looks vaguely off-brand, like knockoff. But the CDs don't. The CDs look fine. They feel fine. And you can tell by the... it's not just the black on the reflective, it's like a coating first. So usually if something is a copy, you can quite easily tell by the CD itself. Got some crap on there. But I played this before and it played fine. So yeah, it's a bit curious as to why it's just a single sheet of paper as the cover. There's no booklet, no liner notes whatsoever. No, often in the greatest hits collections, they get someone to write about them. Some famous music journalist or another artist, a contemporary of theirs. This doesn't have anything of the sort. There we have the back inlay. Oh, it's very slapdash. Looks like it's like, I would say the band had nothing to do with this. This is just a record company put it out, cash grab. As for the track listing, 2 discs, all the songs you'd expect. I'm not a fan of the Eagles beyond the odd song in very small doses now and then. Now, I remember actually making a video a couple of years ago saying that I remember one night listening to this or another compilation I had of theirs or another album, and I remember sitting there, why am I listening to the Eagles? I can't stand this. And I had to like shut it off, which is not common for me. Usually I'll give something to the end of the album before I change over. But there's something about the Eagles that doesn't 100% mesh with me. And I'm not sure what that is. But they got some good songs. Like I said, a song by itself every now and then, like Take It Easy, or Peaceful Easy Feeling, not Desperado, not Tequila Sunrise, I don't like those songs. Lion Eyes, that's okay. Hotel California was one of those songs that I've heard so many times, never actually sat down and said, okay, I'm going to listen to Hotel California in my life, but just the amount it's played on the radio or in bars or wherever else, I've heard that song, I'd say it's probably in the top 10 of most heard songs in my life. Not including, like I said, ones that I purposefully listened to. Things like that, Yesterday by the Beatles, Hey Jude or Let It Be. Just, you never want to hear them ever again. You Kid in Town, Heartache Tonight. I like that song when I was a little kid, I remember. Maybe it was kind of like the rhythmic doom da da doom da. It doesn't have New York Minute, which is one of their later period songs. That I always kind of liked a little bit. But anyway, that's the Eagles from 2003. This compilation, it says down there. Eagles Recording Company 2. Look at all these. We've got Geffen, under license from Universal. Eagles Recording, Warner Music. God, it's like half the bloody record industry is involved in it. Earth, Wind and Fire, best of. This looks quite old as well. You can tell by this kind of style of CD, you know, it's reflective with just the black text printed on the CD itself. Was kind of the go-to design for most of the 80s, even into the early 90s. And then bands started kind of using the CD itself as a kind of a part of the artwork. Just see if I can see a year. It says 1978 there. Obviously it's not 78 because that's pre compact disc technology. It says 78, so everything says 1978, but it's not. It must be sometime in the 80s. But I guess I assume that this Greatest Hits collection was collated in the 70s, maybe on record, and then re-released on CD once that technology was available. I'm not a big listener of Earth, Wind and Fire. Look, they do a cover of Got to Get You Into My Life, the Beatles song. I guess the most famous song by these guys is September. That's the one you get heard played the most. I love music. Hear that from time to time. I don't really have much to say about Earth, Wind and Fire. They're a band I haven't listened to a lot, so yeah. I know a lot of people like them. Like that kind of music. What would you even call it? It's like a kind of R&B soul with elements of other bits and pieces, jazz and rock. And what's on the next E? Another band I don't listen to much, and you hear their name a lot, but ELP, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, which was got for $1 about 2 years ago, the 8th of the 8th, 2022. Another double disc. Now this series, The Essential, you see these around a lot. The Essential, whatever, Robert Palmer. The Essential, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Any other Palmers? The Essential, and they'll have like a classic rock band, and it'll have a greatest hits collection. Double disc in good condition. There's their actual albums. Tarkus. They got some interesting cover art, at least in the first line. Pictures at an exhibition, Trilogy, and then Brain Salad Surgery. That looks like a H.R. Geiger piece of artwork, doesn't it? Then they go to this era, and the cover art falls off a cliff, doesn't it? We got this, which is completely without imagination or creativity. These two even more so, and then this. No, fellas, no. Then we get a live album, more live, and then we get down to the essential, and that's their symbol, the ELP symbol. Yeah, I'm not going to say much about music because I've listened to this very little. It wasn't bad, but people get talk about these guys a lot. Kind of prog rock people like them and kind of identify them as one of the kind of important early influences in that genre. And I like prog rock, so maybe I should listen to them more. The Everly Brothers. This would have been 50 cents. Would not have paid over 50 cents to this. Guaranteed. All I have to do is dream. Dream, dream, dream. Lots of hits from the 60s. This was released in 1992. Don and Phil Everly's magnificent vocal harmonies, once described by Linda Ronstadt as drops of clean mountain water running over the stones, have never been bettered. Well, that's subjective, isn't it? Bye Bye Love Goes. A lot of, you turn on a 60s. We don't really have many of those in my city anymore, because I have a radio in my car, or at least one of the cars, our family car, and you flick through the radio stations when you're driving, and there used to be a few kind of golden oldies stations which would have stuff from the late 50s, like the birth of rock and roll type era, Bill Haley, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and the 60s and maybe into the early 70s, kind of that area there. But I don't think there's a station that plays that anymore in my city. There are later classic rock stations. There's two classic rock stations, Gold FM and The Sound. And they play stuff from the late 60s through up to, I guess, the late 80s. Classic, specifically classic rock, but nothing like the Everly Brothers. So there's not really a station that plays. Is that because all the people who listen to that have passed away? Or that generation is... Because they're not. My parents are that generation. They grew up with that music, or even they were kind of young adults during that music, and they are alive and well, and lots of their friends are also. So, an untapped market, perhaps. Radio's kind of dead, though, isn't it? I don't know if you'd want to sink your money into that nowadays. Next up in the E's, Eurythmics. I bought this very early in my start of my recollection or my re-buying of things. Not that I've ever owned this previously, but when I first came back to New Zealand in 2020, just before COVID started, I went around and started buying things. I remember probably in the first or second lot of CDs I got, this was one of them. And this was 50 cents because I remember the shop where I got it. And it's a great hits collection, as all the other ones have been. Now, Eurythmics are kind of an interesting band. You can see here the jewel case is buggered. It's been pressed down. Some schmuck just came and went, and pushed it down for no reason. But the CD itself is actually in very good condition. Eurythmics are an interesting band because they have that 80s sound, and they're kind of synonymous with the 80s. But if you listen to their songs, they're quite, different, unique. I like Annie Lennox's vocals. I like some of those darker songs they do. Like, I guess, Sweet Dreams is probably one of their most famous songs. But if you listen to that, it's a real, a very dark song. And you can see why Marilyn Manson chose to cover it. Not that bands only cover dark songs, those kinds of bands. But it lent itself to that very well, atmospherically and lyrically even. And it's a song, so speaking of growing up, there was a song that was, when I grew up in the 80s, that was played on the radio incessantly. I heard it a million times, but then sometimes you sit down and you actually listen to it and you hear it again in a different way. You're like, shit, this is actually quite strange and innovative and different for a, probably like a Top of the Pops type song. It would have been. Who's That Girl? Right by Your Side, I could take or leave that song. Here Comes the Rain. Again, that's another kind of darkish song. Although it's kind of tempered a little bit with some strings. There Must Be an Angel. Oh, that's right. That's a bizarre song as well. It starts off with that kind of vocal flourish she does. And then it has this kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. The piano, the E piano. Just putting those songs together, as I assume is what her and Dave Stewart did together, or maybe just Dave Stewart did by himself, is a lot going on. Very complex and, like I said, just kind of interesting. What else we got here? And then there's some of these ones, like When Tomorrow Comes. Now, that's just kind of like a, I don't like it. A boring song. Anyway, yeah, they're a strange one, this band. They but I think the 80s did that, especially kind of with British pop, that kind of new wave, kind of, how would you describe it? Kind of synth pop influenced, post-punky influence, all kind of together, like a band like Depeche Mode. Although early Depeche Mode was very, poppy, like they just can't get enough song. But then as they kind of went along, they kind of, another band like there's a Psychedelic Furs. They all kind of share a similar darkness. So darkness isn't the right word to describe it. And it's specifically the bands that came out of Britain. The American bands at the same time didn't have that. Anyway. Clapton, Eric, backtracking, 22 tracks spanning the career of a rock legend. Now, I'm going to kind of say, I have never been a fan of Eric Clapton. There's very few songs of his that I enjoy. I like Cream. But again, there's Cream is kind of something I like in small doses. That can be a bit, I don't know. But this is one of those old style double discs. And looking from the design aesthetic, it looks very 80s, doesn't it? I can't imagine this was produced beyond 1988. Let's have a look if we can see. 84, there we go. Manufactured in Hanover, West Germany. When I was a kid, I visited Hanover, West Germany. It was still West Germany because it would have been about it was actually probably a few months before the Berlin Wall fell, because it would have been 1989. So in the late 80s, my parents took us to Europe, because my dad is Irish heritage, and so he wanted to go to Ireland, and we did. And then we went in a camper van, like lived in a van, slept in a van around Europe, which seems like bizarre now. Seems like kind of like an adventurous thing for my parents to choose to do. Kind of like, we didn't stay in hotels or anything like that. We slept in a van with 5 kids. My mum and dad, because my younger sister hadn't been born and my oldest brother didn't come with us. So it was 4 kids. And we just drove around. I mean, we took the ferry from Dover across to Calais, then drove into Belgium, up Netherlands, and into West Germany. And my mum had a friend, because my mum had at one stage had worked as a waitress in a hotel, and so she used to meet people from around the world in the hotel restaurant. And she met this nice German lady called Nina, and she lived in Hanover, and so we visited her. Great story. And at this time, it was still West Germany. The Iron Curtain had not fallen, although it must have been literally months away, because we came back to New Zealand in November, and I think we left Europe in October, and that's about when the Berlin Wall was coming down, right? October, November, 89. Winds of change and all that. Anyway, sorry. So we got I Shot the Sheriff, can't stand it. Knocking on Heaven's Door, can't stand it. Lay Down Sally, cannot stand it. Wonderful Tonight, my wife likes that song. I'm going to say I don't. So we got, it's, okay, this is interesting. Each disc has got different kind of delineations. We've got singles, History, Sunshine of Your Love, that's a good song. Tales of Brave Ulysses, that's a good song. Badge, I like that. Little Wing, what's the Jimi Hendrix cover, I assume? Derek and the Dominoes. And Layla. I can listen to Layla for about 2 minutes, and then that's enough. I kind of switch it off. Then Combat Disc 2, we got Classics and Live. Cocaine, don't like it. Strange Brew, to be honest, not one of the Cream songs I like. Spoonful, it's okay. Let It Rain. Have You Ever Loved a Woman? Presence of the Lord. That's from Blind Faith. So it really does kind of span across his career. We've got Cream, Solo, Derek and the Dominoes, Blind Faith, and then we've got some live stuff. Crossroads. There's actually a really good live version of Crossroads that they play on the radio, almost as the default. I wonder if that might be it. Although Can't Find My Way Home, Blues Power, further on up the road. So yeah, I don't actually know why I've never really liked Eric Clapton. You know, when I was a kid, there was the kind of like, people used to say he was the greatest guitarist ever. Or like there was kind of like a list of guitarists, you know, like Jimi Hendrix, obviously, Eric Clapton, Eddie Van Halen. But you'd hear Eric Clapton, you'd think, well, I can hear with Hendrix why someone would say that. I can certainly hear with Eddie Van Halen why someone would say. I can't hear why anyone would say Eric Clapton is the greatest guitarist ever. And I know that being a great guitarist is not just flashy, you know, arpeggios up and down the neck and sweep picking and all the rest of it. But I just never rated him at all. So a Bob Marley song, a Bob Dylan song. Lay Down Sally he is part of that. I wouldn't have guessed that. Now, obviously, part of his story is, you know, his son dying so absolutely tragically in the way that he did. And then the music he did after that, like the Tears in Heaven and stuff like that. And that kind of reinvigorated his career. Not that his career was dying or anything, or he was, you know, I'm sure he would have retained his popularity in the 90s with or without that Unplugged album. But that kind of just, again, I couldn't stand. They're talking about Hotel California as an overplayed song. Well, Jesus, Tears in Heaven would be up there as well, wouldn't it? Anyway, there's another song on one of those albums he released after the death of his son called The Circus is Leaving Town, or The Circus Leaves Town, or something. And that's another song he wrote directly about his son and the death of his son. And lyrically, and knowing the story, I kind of appreciate that song. Because I think I was reading his Wikipedia or something, and it said, oh, he wrote this song and that song. And he said that song, hang on, I'll look at the name because it's, the song itself is not the greatest. It's not terrible either, but it's more lyrically and the kind of the story behind it, I think, gives it more. Is it just called Circus? Oh, it's okay. It's just called Circus. I thought it was called Circus Leaves Town. Oh, okay. Circus, brackets, the circus left town. And it's about the night before his son died, or certainly a short time before, whether it was the day before, or the couple of days, or a week before. Eric Clapton had kind of been estranged from his son. He hadn't been in his life much, but he was trying to kind of make up for that and kind of reconnecting with the mother. And so he took his son out to the circus. And they had a nice night together, and he bought him some toys, and then he dropped him back home. And then I think, like I said, I think it was the next day he died, which is just, awful. But that song, it's not like a mopey woe is me song at all. It's just kind of, I don't know. Anyway, I'll get too emotional if I keep talking about it. The best of Eric Clapton. Another Eric Clapton. Why do I own 2 Eric Clapton compilations if I don't even like it? Well, it's pretty much the same songs. Layla, Badge, I Feel Free, Sunshine of Your Love. Oh, this has got White Room. So White Room is probably my favorite Cream song. And I don't think I have and maybe I do actually. Do I have a Cream album? That's the you got too many C's and you can't remember if you got something or not. But this doesn't have White Room, but this does. Speaking of White Room, if you've ever seen the Joker movie, the one with Joaquin Phoenix, they've just released a sequel, which has been absolutely slaughtered by everyone. But the first movie, I actually quite enjoyed the first movie. It wasn't like an amazing blow-away movie, but I thought it was quite entertaining. And then that last scene where the riot's kicking off and he's in the cop car and White Room is playing, so perfectly used in that movie and that scene. Anyway, and last one, another ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, Jeff Lynne's band, which apparently is another 2 CD. All these look quite dated, don't they? No, this came out in 95, it says. Yeah, I would say it's kind of interesting how you can look at these, and like I said, from the design aesthetic, you can say roughly, like I said, that would be pre-88 and it was 84. This one, I would say it's harder to place. I know, like I just looked, it's 95, but I would have guessed it was the 90s. Maybe it's that combination of purple and black. Some of it does look quite dated as well, but it just looks more modern than that, doesn't it? Anyway, ELO has got some great songs. More than any other band of our time. Here we go. ELO successfully blended pure rock and pop with classical music. Well, I don't know about that. I say probably Queen may have done that. I don't know, actually. Yeah, I don't know. They're often lush arrangements and breathtaking stage shows. ELO created sounds and sights that were unique and immediately identifiable. I would say that is true. Very identifiable. Even Jeff Lynne's production on other bands' stuff kind of stands out. Like when the Beatles got together in the 90s, or the remaining Beatles at the time, the 3 minus Lennon, during the anthology era, they had those songs, Free as a Bird, and I can't remember the other one. Free as a Bird was the main one though. And Paul wanted, what's the guy? Martin. What the hell's the guy's name? And the producer, something Martin. I keep thinking Jeff Martin. It's not Jeff Martin. He's a newsreader in New Zealand. George Martin. So George Martin. Paul McCartney wanted Sir George Martin to produce it. You know, they had this leftover stuff from back in the 60s, and they wanted to update it and kind of clean it up. And obviously George Martin had worked on most of their stuff during their heyday. But George Harrison refused, and he said the only way he would allow it to happen would be if Jeff Lynne produced it from ELO. And when you listen to Free as a Bird, and there's no like ELO flourishes or you know, merging of classical and pop or whatever the thing they just used to describe it, but it has some kind of quality to it that really quite immediately sets it out as being Jeff Lynne, and I don't know what it is. Maybe I knew post. You know, maybe I knew that Jeff Lynne did it, then I listened to it and I said, that's a Jeff Lynne thing. But I don't think that's the case. I think I listened to it and I said, that doesn't sound like the typical Beatles sound. It has a, is it lusher? Is that the lushness like they described here? Great liner notes. Evil Woman, Living Thing, Mr. Blue Sky, Sweet Talking Woman. You got the evil woman and the sweet talking woman. Any other kind of woman? No. Don't bring me down. No. Okay, anyway, so that's all of them. That's almost 36 minutes, or over 36 minutes. The E classic rock. Well, not just because Eurythmics are not rock, and Earth, Wind and Fire are not really rock either, but kind of vaguely classic rock plus Eurythmics. Things from my collection. That one's the most expensive at $1, because I think all the others were 50 cents. That one I can't remember. That was $1. 50, 50, 50. Can't remember. $50, 50. Alright guys, thank you for watching if you lasted this long.